Well, let's stay with crime in the Western Cape. The city of Cape Town launching a protection unit aimed at tackling extortion-related attacks on its staff on the Cape Flats. It follows a sharp rise in such incidents against contractors. Let's speak about this now with the Western Cape Safety and Security MEC Reagen Allen. MEC, good evening to you, and thank you very much for making time for this conversation. Let's start with who exactly is being targeted by these extortionists?
Thank you so much for bringing us into this conversation. I think it's very vital that to see service delivery continue, but also where contractors are actually mandated to deliver a service, be it housing or any other particular service, we are needing that service to go ahead smoothly. So it is deeply concerning when we are seeing staff within the city of Cape Town, within the Western Cape government, and contractors being targeted by extortionists. And this particular approach is ultimately twofold. On the one hand, 2 years ago, the Extortion Task Team, which is a collaborative effort between the Western Cape Government, the South African Police Service, and the City of Cape Town, that sit on a weekly basis to ultimately look at extortion-related matters. But this particular facility protection unit will go a long way, because we have seen in the City of Cape Town where escorts into a particular area, be it to fix a street light, be it to fix a pothole, or to render any particular service in terms of housing. That particular figure over the last year has increased to 1,300 escorts into those particular areas. And I've heard firsthand from community members and from staff on the ground that when they go into a particular area, a group of youngsters at times, a group of men will approach them and actually demand that they give them some form of protection money. If they don't adhere to that particular request, they will ultimately fall victims of a mugging, and in some cases it is even more serious in terms of assault. So extortion, and where persons with criminal intent are wanting to stop services, and these services, Koli, are so vital to communities. It could be the fixing of a drain, which can ultimately lead to that entire road, that entire community being affected, then that service is ultimately stopped.
Yeah. And I see in the statement here the municipality urging residents to get involved in protecting infrastructure. When you put out that statement in that way, how exactly is this going to work? So when you urge the community to help protect or get involved in protecting the infrastructure, what exactly are you alluding to?
Thank you so much for this question. It's twofold again. On the one hand, I've personally seen how neighborhood watch members play an active role in a community where there has been extortion-related matters. So it's obviously a call for communities to also get involved within neighborhood watches, within their CPFs. But also, there is a tip-off line, and that number can be utilized. Any person can call 021-466-0011 and provide any anonymous tip-off so that we can ultimately make sure that these persons are apprehended and brought to book. It is very vital. And when community members also feed information to law enforcement, to the South African Police Service, or directly to the City of Cape Town to ensure that we can ultimately track those particular service delivery requests that is logged. And I'm so delighted, just over the weekend, there was a particular matter where someone raised an issue with regards to street lights that were vandalized, and there was drag racing happening in that particular area. The person contacted me today that they actually saw law enforcement on the ground, and that law enforcement actually arrested 2 particular persons that was involved in these drag racing activities in one community. So when information is shared with authorities, with law enforcement, that response is always then fast-tracked, ultimately to ensure that we can see that a law enforcement officer went out, that we saw SAPs go out, and we track those service delivery requests as well. Hence, we will always urge communities to get involved and to actively play that role. Koli, the one thing I've been saying in the safety space, and from a politician, it's very difficult to say it even, but I'm so aware that government nowhere in the world, whether you are in the UK or in the USA, can do it alone. We're required to work with a number of stakeholders, and communities are a key component of the services that are being delivered. And I'm always delighted when community members actually log these requests, call in, tip off, so that we can ultimately see persons apprehended.
Yeah. Are there instances, MEC, where infrastructure is deliberately targeted and sabotaged in order that city officials get out to try and fix, and for them to fix that, they then have to, or they are accosted by these extortionists who want money first?
Koli, after a long day, a very difficult day, for you to ask this question really warms my heart, because I've seen video footage. There's been communication from Dr. Zahid Badruddin, who is responsible for water and sanitation in the city of Cape Town as well. And I've personally seen these videos. We often take out matters, we ultimately take out mattresses. You would have times seen where concrete and cement was added into a particular drain. One particular time, there was even an engine, a car engine, which was shoved into a manhole in one particular area. And there's no way, Koli, that a mattress folded up and rolled up can find its way into a drain unless there has been a person that ultimately placed that particular piece of item or concrete slab in a particular area. But the wording that has been used often is that we have seen deliberate sabotaging in some communities. And it's deeply actually heartbreaking to see that the service is being delivered in order to fix a particular street, and be it a pothole, be it a drain that is flooding, you will then ultimately see what is taken out of that particular manhole, out of that drain. There's been so many items that would never, under any normal circumstance, land up in that particular drain. So that's been very clear.
That's very shocking.
To answer.
That's very shocking. Let's talk about the unit, therefore, this facility protection unit that's going to tackle extortion-related crime. How big is the unit, and is it going to work on a 24-hour basis? Because there's no telling when it is that the extortionists are out to play.
Police, thank you so much. Although I don't have the full figure at my disposal at this particular time, it is driven based on the services that are being delivered in a particular area. When it will be on a strict schedule, and those particular officers will then escort and help those particular contractors and staff to be in a particular area. So it's highly dependent on when the contractor or the staff member is then delivering a particular service, or there is a particular matter that needs to be attended to in a particular community. We have seen over 2 financial years, there was currently 700 and just under 760 such escorts into a particular area to help and assist to curb these extortionists. Over the last year, that figure actually rose to 1,300, because on the one hand, the government has a very difficult decision to make. On the one hand, we are needing to ensure that services can actually be rendered, that housing opportunities are extended to persons that are in dire need. And when extortionists halt that particular service delivery, it affects an entire community. So in coming with a response, we are also needing to ensure that we can actually curb it, bring those persons to book, so that we can ultimately not have a community or have a society where you need to and to bring a service. But I don't have the exact figure at my disposal, but I will make sure that you get it as soon as possible.
Yeah. MEC, I'd like for you to just take a pause, and we're going to take a break. When we return, I'd like to bring up that initial story we read about before coming to your interview. It's the gunmen who stormed a barbershop, killing 4 people, including 3 children in the area of Khayelitsha. I just want to delve deeper into what is being done to try and protect such communities? Stay with us. We are going to continue the conversation with MEC Reagen Allen. Let's talk about this crime trend that seems to have engulfed the township areas in the Western Cape. Khayelitsha, it's in the news more often than not for all of the bad crime. The Subs Commissioner, Thembisile Phathekile, talking today about this murder of 4 people, including 3 children, gunmen simply storming a barber shop, opening fire. It would appear indiscriminately because children are also caught in this particular incident, and they've sadly died. What is going on? Because he talks about this is yet another double homicide after one that was previously seen earlier this month. What seems to be the problem in the township areas?
Corey, based on your insert on this particular discussion, it's also deeply heartbreaking that we also saw a double murder in the Nyanga area on Saturday as well. Even escalation of mass murders predominantly in areas like Khayelitsha, Nyanga and Gugulethu. That is not what we are wanting to see. Earlier today, when I was briefed by the PC in this regard, we were very clear on our side that when there is an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 4-year-old, which has been killed in a brutal way where gangsters and criminals are showing ultimately no regard for life, the South African Police Service, together with the LEAP officers in that particular area, must ultimately leave no resource to spare so that we can ultimately bring these perpetrators to book. I've already received information my side on a particular vehicle that was seen to be in that particular facility. I can confirm that that information has been fast-tracked to the South African Police Service, and there is persons of interest that is being tracked, because we are wanting to ensure that any person that makes himself or herself guilty of these heinous crimes are actually brought to book. Corey, it will be remiss of me not to mention Khayelitsha in the breath of 2021 and 2022. There was a major high flyer with the name of Bara, who was a known gang member in that particular area. Early 2023, he went to prison, and we ultimately saw that extortion-related matters in the Khayelitsha area actually died down dramatically. Now, over this particular year, we've seen it pop up again, and it is concerning, considering that we have advocated for 2 approaches. On the one hand, to ensure that the visible policing that we have in the area must be data-led and evidence-based, so that officers know where to be at what particular time to be more proactive. But on the other hand, Kuli, a major thing is to ensure that we can actually have crime intelligence and actually cope our officers with the intel to ensure that these persons can be ultimately brought to book.
Yeah.
I know the one matter that also received wide-scale publicity was the murder of there was a person that was arrested in that particular regard, linked to another case, and he was on his way out of the country, caught in a bus in Beaufort West. So we have seen how these criminals ultimately are in a particular area. Once they commit these hideous crimes, they ultimately try to leave the area, and we have seen this in other instances as well, but they are becoming so much more brazen in their approach. So it's definitely governments, we have our work cut out for us in terms of our oversight. I'm always wanting to ensure oversight can lead to better service delivery, not to just pass the buck to the South African Police Service, but we definitely require the police to ultimately do their job.
Yeah. MEC, we have less than a minute left. You mentioned crime intelligence. What's your assessment of how crime intelligence is working in the Western Cape overall?
I think at a local station level, we have pockets of excellence. I've personally seen that, for example, at one particular station, you speak to the relevant crime intelligence officer at that station, and they would actually give you proper intel that you are also getting from communities. But on the other hand, broader speaking, it definitely appears that there is a big vacuum in terms of crime intelligence and what ultimately should be deemed to be crime intelligence, so that we can actually bring these perpetrators to book before a particular crime occurs. That's ultimately the reason why you have intel to curb the crime before it actually occurs. But even after the crime has been committed, you are needing to ensure that you have the intelligence to ensure that those perpetrators are held accountable. So in my estimation, for these last 764 days since I'm in this particular role, I've seen a big vacuum in terms of crime intelligence, not only in our province, but ultimately across the entire country. And that is part of our core when we are wanting to ensure that the SAPS members at the station level can be equipped with the necessary information, the tools of trade, but also the intel, so that these gang members can ultimately be brought to book, these criminals, these persons that are committing heinous crimes, these rapists can actually be caught.
Yeah, you say a vacuum. I'm now literally skating on thin ice here because of time. If you can answer yes or no, does the Western Cape have a crime intelligence head when you talk about a vacuum?
We have seen a number of our officers over the last 6 months have been taken back up to Pretoria, and I've not had any personal engagements over the last year directly with crime intelligence, not due to me not wanting that engagement, but because of the absence of those particular persons. So when you ask certain pertinent questions, you get a high level answer, and you don't get to the meat and to the nitty gritty of it. So I don't see it as effective in our province. And call it based on the data, based on the stats, it's very clear that crime intelligence across our country, there's a lot to be desired for.
All right, Reagen Allen, thank you very much for your time. And on that depressing note, we're going to leave the conversation there.